It was a hot afternoon in Atlanta, the kind of heat that made the air feel heavy and the pavement shimmer like a mirage. Nathaniel Carter stood beside his sleek black Mercedes, the hood popped open, a deep frown on his face. The car had died on him in the middle of a quiet neighborhood road. No warning, no strange sounds, just silence when he pressed the gas. He tapped on his phone, trying to get a signal to call for help, but of course there was none. His assistant wasn't picking up either, and the clock was ticking. He had a meeting downtown in less than an hour, one that could change everything for his new company. But here he was, sweating in his designer shirt, staring at a dead engine like it had betrayed him. Cars drove past without stopping. A few drivers slowed down, but seeing his suit and the expensive car, they probably figured he had it covered. He didn't. Nathaniel knew a lot about business, stocks, and software, but not a thing about engines. Just as he sighed and leaned against the car door, a red pickup truck rolled up. It looked like it had seen better days, faded paint, a few dents, and loud brakes. A woman hopped out quickly, her hair tied up in a puff under a baseball cap and grease stains on her jeans. "You all right?" she asked, walking toward him without hesitation. He looked up, slightly surprised. Not really. Car just stopped out of nowhere. She peered under the hood without asking and let out a small laugh. These new luxury cars, all tech, no heart. Mind if I take a look? Nathaniel hesitated for a second. Be my guest. She leaned over the engine, poking around like she knew exactly what she was doing. Name's Alicia, by the way, she said, not looking up. Nathaniel, he replied, watching her hands move confidently over parts he couldn't even name. Alicia pulled a flashlight from her back pocket and squinted at something. Looks like your radiator hose slipped. Easy fix. She reached in her truck, pulled out a small toolkit, and got to work. Nathaniel watched, impressed and a little embarrassed. Here he was, standing helpless beside a woman who clearly didn't care about his car's price tag, just that it worked. How do you know all this? He asked. My dad was a mechanic. I've been fixing cars since I was 10, she said casually. Within minutes, she had the car humming again. She wiped her hands on a rag and smiled. Try starting it. He climbed in, turned the key, and the engine roared to life. He let out a laugh of relief. That's amazing. Seriously, thank you. Alicia shrugged. No problem. Just helping out. And just as Nathaniel stepped out to properly thank her, his eyes dropped to her hand. There it was, a gold ring on her finger. He paused for a moment. That simple detail changed the energy between them. Nathaniel couldn't stop staring at the ring. It was simple, just a thin gold band on Alicia's finger. Nothing flashy, but clear enough. Married, he thought. Figures. Of course someone like her would already be taken. Confident, skilled, and kind, she had stepped out of her old truck without hesitation and helped a complete stranger. People didn't do that much anymore. Alicia noticed his silence and looked down at her hand. Oh, she said with a short laugh. The ring. Nathaniel blinked, caught off guard. What? No, I saw it. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she gave him a small smile and stepped back from the car. Well, you're good to go now. Shouldn't give you any more trouble, but I'd get it checked out just to be safe. Nathaniel nodded, adjusting his sleeve. Thanks again. You really saved me back there. No big deal. It's what I do. She was already turning back toward her truck when he pulled out his wallet. Can I at least pay you for the help? She glanced over her shoulder. No need. I didn't stop to get paid. Just glad I could help. He held out a few bills anyway. Please. You could have kept driving, but you didn't. She walked back slowly, looked at the money, then shook her head with a warm grin. Keep it, but I'll take a cold bottle of water if you've got one. Nathaniel laughed and opened his car door, pulling out a chilled bottle from a small cooler in the back seat. You're in luck. This one's still cold. She took it and nodded in thanks, twisting the cap off. You don't seem like the kind of guy who breaks down often. First time, he admitted, leaning against the car. And it had to happen today. Big meeting in 45 minutes. She tilted her head. Well, lucky I came along then. You work around here. I'm heading downtown. Tech startup stuff. Boring to most people. Not boring, she said, sipping the water. Just not my lane. I'm more of a hands-on type. He chuckled. Clearly. They stood in silence for a few seconds, the kind that wasn't awkward, but comfortable, like both of them were thinking the same thing, but didn't want to say it. "Well," Alicia said, walking back to her truck, "you better get going before you miss your meeting." Nathaniel nodded, opening his car door. "Right. Thanks again." Seriously, she climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. "Take care, Nathaniel." "You too, Alicia." As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her truck turning the corner in the opposite direction. Something about her stuck with him. More than the help, more than the engine. It was the way she'd shown up, fixed the problem, and disappeared just like that. No expectations. No strings. Just a ring that said, "Not available." 3 days later, Nathaniel still couldn't stop thinking about her. Alicia. Every time he started his car, he remembered the way she had leaned over the engine like it was second nature. How she didn't hesitate. How she smiled, joked, and didn't take his money. And, of course, that gold ring. It had left a weird feeling in his chest, like something was there and wasn't. He tried to brush it off. He was a busy man. Meetings, emails, deadlines. No time to think about a woman he'd met for 10 minutes. But still, her voice kept coming back. That calm, confident tone. Just helping out. On a slow morning, he decided to grab a coffee from a small cafe across town. A friend had recommended it. Said they had the best muffins and strong coffee. He parked outside, still half on a business call, when something in the window made him stop mid-sentence. He saw her. Alicia. Not in coveralls this time, but in a simple t-shirt and jeans, standing behind the counter, laughing as she frosted cupcakes. She looked so different, lighter, carefree. A streak of flour ran down her cheek, and she didn't seem to notice or care. Nathaniel ended his call and stepped inside, the little bell on the door jingling. The place smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. It was cozy, full of soft chatter and warm light. He stepped up to the counter just as she turned around. She blinked, surprised. "Well, look who it is." He smiled. "I swear I'm not following you." Alicia laughed, wiping her hands on her apron. "You found the best coffee in town. Can't blame you for that." "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "Yeah, this is my sister's bakery," she explained. "I help out on mornings when the shop's slow." "You run an auto shop and bake cupcakes?" "Not exactly. I fix cars. She bakes. I just do this to help her out. Family stuff, you know." Nathaniel nodded. "That's actually pretty great. So what can I get you?" she asked, reaching for a notepad. "Surprise me," he said. A few minutes later, he was sitting at a corner table with a hot cup of coffee and a fresh muffin, still warm. She brought it over herself. "Coffee's on the house," she said with a grin. "Consider it a return favor." He took a sip and smiled. "This might be better than the car fix." "Don't lie," she said, laughing. They talked for a few minutes, nothing deep, just light, easy conversation. For a moment, it didn't feel like a millionaire talking to a mechanic. Just two people sharing coffee on a quiet morning. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Nathaniel noticed something. Her ring wasn't on. The moment he noticed it, Nathaniel couldn't help but stare. Alicia's ring was gone. She was reaching across the counter, passing him a napkin, her hands in full view. No gold band. No tan line. Just bare fingers. He hesitated for a second, then looked up at her face. She hadn't mentioned anything. She just kept talking about how busy mornings got in the bakery, how her sister burned half a tray of cookies earlier, and how she'd almost dropped a birthday cake last week. But his mind was stuck on one thing. Where did the ring go? So, he started, trying to sound casual. "You're not wearing the ring today." She paused, eyes flicking to her hand for a second. Then she smiled and leaned on the counter. "You noticed that, huh?" He raised an eyebrow. "Hard not to. It kind of stood out the first time." She nodded slowly, her tone shifting just a little. "Yeah, it usually does." "So?" he asked, unsure if he was overstepping. Alicia let out a small laugh and looked down. "It's not real." Nathaniel blinked. "Wait, what?" "The ring. It's just something I wear at work. Mostly when I'm under the hood or out on roadside calls," she said, shrugging. "Some guys don't take no for an answer. It keeps things simple." He stared at her for a second, processing that. "That's smart." "Yeah. I mean, I'm not married." "Not even close," she added, looking him in the eye. "But when you're a woman working with cars, especially around certain types of customers, it just helps." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Makes sense." They sat in silence for a moment. The sounds of the cafe filled the space. Coffee machines, soft music, a baby babbling at a nearby table. "So," Alicia said after a moment, "you thought I was married, huh?" "Honestly, yeah," he said, smiling now. "Kinda changed how I talk to you." "Figured," she replied, grinning. "You went all polite and formal real quick." "Well, yeah, I'm not the type to mess with someone else's situation." She sipped her coffee and looked at him over the rim of the cup. "That's good to know." They both laughed, the mood lighter now. Something unspoken between them had cleared. "So what's your story?" she asked, leaning forward. "Mr. Fancy Car, tech guy, clearly doing well. Why were you even driving through my side of town?" He shrugged. "GPS took me on the fastest route. Turns out breaking down was the fastest way to meet someone interesting." Alicia rolled her eyes, but she smiled. "That was smooth. Thanks. I've been saving it." He glanced at his watch. He had time before his next meeting, but more than that, he wanted to stay. Just a little longer. She didn't ask him to leave. And this time, he didn't drive away wondering. Now he knew. The ring had never been real, but the connection just might be. The next morning, Nathaniel found himself taking the long way to his office. He told himself it was just to avoid traffic. But deep down, he knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to pass by that little bakery again. The one where Alicia had smiled at him over cupcakes and coffee. The one where she wasn't wearing that ring. He didn't go inside. Just slowed down, glanced through the window as he drove past. She wasn't there today. Maybe she was at the auto shop. Or maybe she was just enjoying a day off. Either way, he told himself not to be weird. This wasn't like him. Nathaniel didn't usually chase moments. He built plans, followed strategies, kept his focus tight. That's how he built his company. How he became a millionaire before turning 40. But Alicia, she wasn't a plan. She was unexpected, real, and that was what made her hard to forget. 3 days later, fate made another move. Nathaniel had been invited to speak at a local business mixer, a casual event with small business owners, investors, and entrepreneurs. He normally skipped these, but a friend had insisted it would be good for networking. He arrived at the event, held in a big community hall filled with folding tables, samples of handmade goods, flyers for local services, and people chatting over punch and finger food. It was nothing like the high-end conferences he was used to. He walked around, greeting a few folks, making polite small talk. Then, across the room, he saw a familiar face. Alicia. She was standing by a booth with a banner that read Morgan Auto Repair. There were photos of her shop, a big 10% off your first service sign, and even a little bowl of candy on the table. She looked busy, talking to a couple about their car troubles, but her face lit up when she saw him. "You again," she said with a smile as he walked up. "I could say the same," he replied. "What brings you here?" she asked, handing a flyer to someone as they passed. "A friend dragged me out. Said I needed to connect with the community," he said, making air quotes. "Well, welcome to my side of the world," she grinned. "You own the shop?" he asked, pointing at the banner. "Yep. After my dad passed, I took over. It's been tough, but I'm still standing." "That's impressive," he said sincerely. "Not easy running a business on your own." "Tell me about it," she replied. "You ever try explaining engine parts to someone who thinks oil changes are optional?" He laughed. "Guilty. I used to be one of those people." "Used to be?" She raised an eyebrow. "Well," he said, smiling, "let's just say someone taught me a thing or two." They stood there for a moment, in the middle of the busy room, two different lives crossing again. Not by accident. Maybe some meetings weren't random after all. After the event started to quiet down, Alicia packed up her booth, gathering the flyers and empty candy bowl. Nathaniel, who had hung around longer than he'd planned, was still nearby. They exchanged a few glances, both clearly waiting for a reason to talk again. "You hungry?" she asked, tossing the last of her things into a cardboard box. He smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." "There's a diner around the corner," she said, grabbing her car keys. "Nothing fancy, but they've got the best grilled cheese in town." "Lead the way," he replied. A few minutes later, they were sitting at a corner booth, the kind with sticky menus and old jukebox buttons that didn't work anymore. The waitress took their orders, called Alicia by name, and brought over 2 glasses of sweet tea without even asking. "You come here a lot?" Nathaniel asked. "At least once a week," Alicia said. "It's simple, And they don't care if I show up covered in grease. You always this down to earth? He asked with a curious look. Pretty much, she said. Never saw the point in pretending to be something I'm not. He nodded. I like that. There was a short pause as the waitress dropped off their food. The grilled cheese really did look amazing, golden brown and perfectly crispy. So what's your story? She asked between bites. I know the business part. What about the rest? He thought for a second. Grew up in Chicago. Single mom. Didn't have much, but she worked hard. I started building websites as a teenager, then turned that into software, then into a business. So you built your company from scratch? Yeah, he said, a little proud. A lot of late nights, failures, and figuring things out. But it paid off. That's cool, she said. You don't act like some rich tech guy. What do they act like? Usually a little too impressed with themselves, she said with a smirk. Good to know I'm not one of them, he laughed. They talk more about life, work, family. Nathaniel told her how he barely had time to cook, and she teased him about needing a microwave for everything. She told him how she once fixed a car in the pouring rain because the driver was a single mom with a baby in the back seat. I didn't charge her, Alicia said. Some things you just do because it's the right thing. He looked at her for a long second. You're really something, you know that? She shrugged, but he could tell the compliment meant something to her. When the check came, he grabbed it before she could even reach. Hey, she protested. My treat, he said. You already saved me once. As they stood outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. This was nice, she said. It was, he agreed. They didn't hug. They didn't make any promises. But when she smiled and said, see you around, they both knew they would. Nathaniel didn't wait long to call her. 2 days after their lunch, he dialed her number, not even trying to pretend he was calling for car trouble. He just wanted to hear her voice again. She answered on the third ring, sounding like she had grease on her hands and a wrench in the other. Hey, stranger, she said, her voice calm and playful. Don't tell me your car broke down again. He laughed. Nope, just wanted to see if you were free this weekend. Depends, she said. What's the plan? He paused. How do you feel about going to a car show? That got her attention. A car show? Yeah, he said. One of the biggest in the state. Classics, custom builds, all that good stuff. Figured it might be your kind of thing. You really want to take me to a car show? She asked, like she was trying to figure him out. Why not? You're the car expert. I figured you could teach me a few things. Alicia didn't answer right away. Then finally, she said, okay, sounds like fun. Saturday came, and they met in the parking lot of a huge convention center. Alicia wore a faded denim jacket and sneakers. Nathaniel had on jeans and a clean t-shirt, trying to keep it casual. As they walked through rows of shiny, restored vehicles, Alicia lit up. She pointed out engine types, talked about design choices, and even guessed the year of a few models just by looking at the headlights. Nathaniel mostly listened, totally drawn in by the way she spoke. Her eyes sparkled when she talked about cars the way other people talked about vacations or movies. He never seen anyone so passionate about something most people overlooked. At one point, they stopped at a deep red Mustang from the 60s. She walked around it slowly, admiring every curve. This, she said, is my dream car. He smiled. Good to know. What about you? She asked. Any dream cars? He looked around, then shook his head. Honestly, never really thought about it. I was too focused on building my business. Cars were just a way to get around. She raised an eyebrow. So you never slowed down to enjoy the ride? Not until recently, he said, looking at her. The afternoon passed faster than either of them expected. By the time they left, the sun was low in the sky, and her phone was full of car photos. As they walked back to their cars, Nathaniel turned to her. You ever think about growing your business? Like opening more shops or teaching others? All the time, she said. But it takes money, time, connections. He hesitated, then said carefully, I could help. She stopped walking and looked at him. Help how? Not charity, he said. A real partnership. I invest. You run things. We build something big together. She studied his face for a long second, then smiled slowly. We'll talk about it. And just like that, something new had started, right there in the middle of an empty parking lot. 1 month later, the front of Morgan Auto Repair looked different. The old sign had been repainted. The waiting area inside had new chairs, fresh coffee, and a clean counter. There were flyers for basic car classes on the wall. Learn how to check your oil, tires safety 101. Everything looked brighter, like the place had taken a deep breath. Nathaniel sat on the bench outside, watching as Alicia gave instructions to her small crew. She moved like someone in charge, confident, quick, and always 3 steps ahead. He smiled, sipping from his coffee, proud, but mostly just happy to see her doing what she loved. She finally came over, wiping her hands on a rag. "You like the new paint job?" she asked. "Looks sharp," he said. "The blue is a good call." "I told you," she grinned. "Always trust the woman with the wrench." They laughed. A customer pulled into the lot, and one of Alicia's team waved them into the garage. The shop was busier than ever, thanks to the money and support Nathaniel had offered, and the respect Alicia had earned. "You know," she said, sitting beside him, "I never thought I'd work with someone like you." "Someone like me?" he asked. "Yeah, tech guy, suit guy, millionaire guy," she teased. "Hey, I haven't worn a suit once since we met." "True, but you still order your coffee like a CEO." "Guilty," he laughed. They sat in silence for a moment, comfortable and easy. The breeze carried the smell of oil and fresh tires, oddly calming. A few kids from the neighborhood rode by on bikes, waving at Alicia. She waved back without missing a beat. "You've really built something here," Nathaniel said. She corrected. "We built this." He looked at her then, serious for a moment. "I didn't do this for a return on investment. I did it because I believe in you." She smiled, soft and real. "And that's why it worked." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Not velvet, not dramatic, just a simple box. "Don't worry," he said quickly, seeing the surprise on her face. "It's not what you think." She opened it slowly. Inside was a thin, silver ring. Not flashy. No diamonds. Just clean and strong, with tiny letters engraved inside. It read, "For the woman who fixed more than my car." She looked up at him, touched. "You once wore a ring to keep people away," he said. "I figure maybe now you could wear one just because you want to." She slipped it on, smiled, and said, "I think I'll keep this one." He stood up, offering her a hand. "Ready to get back to work?" "Always," she said, taking his hand and standing beside him. They walked back into the shop together, not just partners in business, but in something else too. Something real. Because sometimes when a car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, it leads to something worth fixing and keeping.